Hey guys, welcome. That's Our Life podcast. I'm your host, NAZLI FREDERICKS. Thank you for liking, sharing, following. Please keep tuning in. Check out the other podcasts as well on the page. Not just this one, but go through the others, especially the people, when you are late night awake and you cannot sleep, just go through the other podcasts, give it a listen. Let me know what you think of it as well. I'm excited. On the 28th, Roscoe Palm is having a show and he has Peter de Villiers on, and I'm a huge fan. So please check out that one as well. Tonight, the legendary guest that we have, EB Inglis. Am I pronouncing your surname correctly?
It's Inglis.
Inglis.
Well, if you break it up into the two syllables,
okay,
and then lis. A lot of people try to work the G in there like gliss, but it's not. It's just like Inglis. So that makes it a whole lot easier, yeah.
Okay. We're going to go in a little bit in depth about yourself. Preferably starting from the beginning, the childhood and all of that, what it was like growing up, your years later. I want to get into your CV as well. I should have asked you to bring with the CV. Like what I've seen going through your LinkedIn profile and everything, and your capabilities and things that you have done. Because we would see just the radio presenter like you just there, but there's quite extensive as to what you have done. And I don't even want to start with Inferno and all of that.
Oh my word, are we going there?
We're going back, all of
that
it.
far back, okay.
We are here to get to know you, to see what your journey is like, so that we have a better understanding of you, but also in the type of industry, like what you go through to get to that point. Because the reason also why I like this podcast or the goal behind it, it's like to see people's journeys. We will see like you there, up there. It's amazing, and all of us is flashy, but we don't know everything that you've gone through to get to that point.
Yeah.
So you can start with you. Let's start from the beginning.
Okay, so childhood, born and raised in Belhar, 7493, and Belhar is a very interesting place because you have different sections of Belhar. People who grew up in Belhar will know that you either get Old Belhar or New Belhar. You get the flower section, which is where I grew up. So all the roads and streets in that section were named after some kind of plant or flower. So my parents still live there. In Seikabossi Road, right down the road from Belhar High. And so you get other roads like Daffodil Crescent and Jasmine Road and Hyacinth, all the plants. And then you get the musical section. That's where my aunt lives currently. And that's where you get Mozart Way and Cello Street and Chopin and all of this. So growing up in Belhar was really cool because we had that, especially with our neighbors, we had that neighborly spirit. So we knew, the parents knew each other, the kids knew each other. It was the time when I could still walk to my friend's house, and then on a Friday afternoon, we would go to Alvane Park. And that was actually a multi-purpose field. So they would either play hockey there or cricket, but we used it as a football field. So every Friday after school, we would play there until the sun goes down. And it's a pity because now they've closed that. And you can only use that field now if you pay for it. When we got older, we tried to, jump the fence and play football there anyway. And then you get the caretaker across the road, like, what maak julle daar so, and whatever. And then we had to run. But it was really cool growing up there. I went to Erika Primary in Belhar. From there, went to Belhar High for like 2 years. And after that, why I had to move from there to Settlers High in Bellville was because I was an academic. I did really well academically. And what would happen is right before exams, your books would get stolen if you do well academically. So your books would get stolen so that those who didn't do their work throughout the year had notes to study. And my English teacher actually called my parents in and said, listen, your son is going to get bullied at this school. And they're going to keep stealing his books. And I think he needs a bit more of a challenge academically, and he needs to be with other learners who are like-minded. And that's when I made the move to to settlers, not to knock Belhar High, because the school itself I felt was really good. My sister went there; they had really good teachers. It was just circumstances, I guess, that the kids grew up in.
Okay.
I mean, I went from Erika Primary, where it was very sheltered, and yeah, there were like scraps here and there, like fights that would break out, but nothing hectic. It was only when I got to Belhar High that I actually encountered maybe people who might have been affiliated, with gangs. And I remember this one time in class, the teacher said something. I turned around to the kid that she addressed, and then I laughed, and the guy was like, "What lacht sy?" And I was like, and the tone, I was like, "Shit, I'm not going to last here," because I was never like a fighter kind of dude. I was never like a tough guy. And then my English teacher was like, "You need to go. My son is at Settlers. Apply and let's see what happens." And she actually went along with my dad because my mom was working and my dad was off the afternoon, and my English teacher went with me to my interview at Settlers for grade 10. Sat down with the principal at the time, Mr. Trevor Webster, and we had the interview. And when we were done, he was like, "You're going to need to shave." I'm like, "Why?" He was like, "Welcome to Settlers." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I made it in. But at that time, you're 15 years old, just a little bit of bum fluff starts growing on the face. That's not allowed. You have to be clean shaven. And that's when I went to Settlers from grade 10 up until grade 12. And that school was actually where I fell in love with the arts.
Okay.
Because they used to have musicals every year, and these one-act plays. They had, rugby, hockey, basketball, all these extramural activities. I was just like blown away. And on top of that, like really pretty girls as well. So I was like in my element as a teenager, like, okay, we got sport, we got arts, we got girls. It's like, oh my word, this is like the best school ever. And my life was pretty much sheltered as a kid, because my dad is from District 6. He knows what it's like growing up hard. My mom also grew up with parents being divorced, and going to boarding school in a convent school, and then moving from Bloemfontein down to Cape Town when she met my dad. So they know what it's like growing up in a tough situation. They didn't want that for their kids. So they worked incredibly hard to make sure that myself and my sister had a comfortable life and a sheltered life, and sheltered us a lot from like the elements. But yeah, that's sort of my childhood. I was trying to sum everything up within like 5-10 minutes.
I just want to note Craig's comment. The Settlers High School head boy in the years I was there, talented even back then.
Oh yeah, Craig. I remember Craig. Yeah, so head prefect, that I didn't expect that. I was head prefect at Erika Primary as well. And then my goal when I got to Settlers was like, just keep your head down, focus on your schoolwork, and then that's it. In the first term, my grade 10 home class teacher, or registered class teacher, Ms. Hines, right? Tough woman. She approached me and she was like, "I see you as the future head prefect here at Settlers." I'm like, "I'm grade 10. I just got here like this term. Like, it's like, no, I see something in you where you can be a leader." And lo and behold, when I got to grade 12, first I was like voted in to be part of the prefects, and you go on a prefect camp, and then they do all these like leadership exercises. And then from there, obviously the school governing body and the teachers and everyone get together, and they decide like who's going to be the head prefects. And then when they announced, that was at the valedictory when we were in grade 11, the valedictory service of that matric year, 2000. And then that's when they announced like the head prefects of the following year. So that's when they announced me, and I was like, "What? Me?" And yeah, that's how I became the head prefect of Settlers. And if
I love that about her, the fact that she looked at you and she saw your potential. That's awesome.
No, that's amazing. She was really tough. She also taught us accounting. And anyone who was in Mrs. Hines or Miss Hines' accounting class passed with A's. She drilled us. I mean, she would teach us the work, and then we would do past papers until it was coming out of our ears. By the time we got to matric and that final exam, we thought she set up the paper because we had seen all of this so many times. And when we wrote the exam, all of us walked out there like, yeah, that was a walk in the park. And even those kids that maybe got like C's for other subjects, when it came to accounting and you were in her class, you passed with an A. It's incredible. Wow. Yeah.
I want to jump into Inferno. I'm curious.
Okay, so Inferno was a boy band in high school that I was a part of. It was myself, another guy by the name of Grant Jansen, and my cousin, Ebrahim Inglis, who I only found out was my cousin when I got to Settlers. And there was Craig Cullis and another guy by the name of Robin van Wyk, and we were like 5 at first. And it was during one of those musicals. I auditioned in grade 10 to be a part of the King and I musical the following year. And so I had like a very small role. I was part of the extras basically. And so we had a lot of free time when it was rehearsals while the director was working with the lead characters. Myself and Grant and Ewan and Craig and Robin, we would like sort of like disappear into the school, and there was this minor hall that was on the second floor. Great acoustics at night, and we would just like sing Boys to Men, these a cappellas in the still of the night and that kind of stuff. And then we were like, guys, we actually sound really good together. Like, why don't we do this? Why don't we start a group? I can't even tell you who came up with the name Inferno, really. And then at the end of that year, there's always a talent show at the end of the year, and where people audition, and then they get to perform in front of the entire school. And then that's when we had our first live performance, was at that talent show at the end of that grade 11 year, 2000. And we sang in the still of the night, brought the house down, and we were like, let's do this. Let's be a group. And it carried on through matric, even post-matric for like a year. And but then after that, you know, parents of some of the members were like, listen, we need our child to focus here. Can they rather focus on their studies and not be a part of this group? So we became a foursome. And then after that, it became a little taxing because people wanted to go in different directions, either work or study. And then the group broke up after that. Yeah. But that was kind of like my road into music and singing, and thinking like, I can do this. I can maybe either sing for a living or, you know, just be involved with music and making music.
Okay. So is that where the studio also comes in?
Yeah. So I've built and broken down and built up a studio for myself like so many times. Even now, I've actually sold most of my equipment and got rid of the studio and downscaled so I can be more mobile. So it's just like the laptop and a microphone, so I could work anywhere I wanted to work and not be confined to a studio, and also not pay rent. But yeah, so that's, I like the process of making music. I like working with other artists, writing, collaborating, and even just working by myself in the studio. It's like time works differently in the studio. I'll tell my wife, like, I'll be there. I'm just going to be there for 30 minutes, an hour, come out 3, 4, 5 hours later. That's also maybe why I got rid of the studio. But yeah, I mean, music for me has been like cathartic, therapeutic. It makes me a better person. I get antsy when I'm not making music for long periods of time. When I don't get to make music, it's almost like I get moeilijk, and then, like, you know, I got to get back into it, make something, and then I'm like a different person afterwards. And when you don't have the time to always make music, I also needed to find a different outlet for that, and then that's where I found running now as of late. So I run as well. So along with music and running, that sort of like keeps me sane.
I hear you, in terms of that and keeping you sane.
Yeah.
But for me, that does not understand because
Yeah.
I'm plain lazy. I don't want to do the physical
Yeah.
activities and all of that. But getting up early and then just deciding running and you feel amazing. Like,
Yeah. Well, I don't do the early morning thing.
Okay,
I don't do the early. It's more of the after work thing, which actually works better for me because when you work in radio and you do a show, people think that you're there for 3 hours, you talk nonsense, and you go home.
Yeah.
They don't realize there's prep that's involved. There's also, you have to have your head about you while you're doing a radio show. There's a lot of moving parts, especially if you don't have a producer. I don't work with a producer. I don't have a technical producer. So I'm doing everything myself. And you have to have your what's about you, plus you're presenting. So when you finish a show like that for 3 hours, then you still like on this high. And there's like this come down from that high where you actually feel a little bit of like almost like, a post kind of depression type of thing, because you're like on this high and now there's like nothing for the next hour while you're driving home. So to sort of like even balance myself out, even everything out, then I'll go and run, and whether it's 30 minutes or 2 hours, then when you come back from that, your head is like clear and you're just like a normal person for the people in the house, which I think is great, because if you have my wife will attest to that. Like if I'm in one of those moods where I don't want to talk, that's not fair on the other people in the house, because they're not in your head. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So if you release and balance yourself out, then you can be a better person for the people in your house as well. Yeah.
Okay. In your line of work, is there any negativity? Okay, from what I see on my end, I don't see all of that in you, this bubbly person, positive and all of that. Like, do you deal with any negativity?
I can be moody. I can be moody. No, that's for sure. My kids and my wife will attest to that. I can be moody. But yes, there is a lot of negativity. It's twofold. You can either work in a toxic environment, and that can be the negativity, or you will encounter maybe listeners. You have no idea, like the kind of like comments that will. I mean, maybe you do have an idea. Like social media has given that window where
I have an idea. Yeah.
You will have an idea where you think you're having a great show. Okay, and you getting so many positive comments coming through. Then there's just one comment from somebody. They are having a bad day. They're taking it out on you now and saying like, listen, you boring, you crap. Like, who's this? Who's Darren? That kind of thing. And then that just like breaks you. And then you, the whole rest of the day, you're like, yo, that's I thought I was having a good show. Do I suck like as a radio presenter? And then you kind of have to like bring yourself back. So there's that negativity. You get a lot of negative comments, and I've come from a very toxic working environment in a previous radio station. And then when I got to KFM and I saw how people were working there, I had to unlearn a lot of that mistrust. If you like work in radio, like a lot of times it's cutthroat and you have, it's competition, it's competitive. So you're thinking like, I can't trust anyone. Somebody's going to want my slot and I can't share ideas because, somebody's going to steal my ideas and then make it their own. And then their show is going to be more successful than yours. When I got to KFM, I had none of that. Wow. I had none of that. Everyone working behind the scenes works towards the person on air having a good on-air product. That's all that matters, right? Is that the person, that show that's on air is the best at that time. Because if you succeed, everyone else behind the scenes succeeds as well. It means more listeners, it means revenue, it means people get paid well, people get paid at all, people get to keep their jobs. Everybody is working towards that single goal. Even amongst the other presenters in the lineup, so many times you'll have in a radio station where the morning show, the breakfast show, and the afternoon drive show, they will constantly be competing with each other, and will have like certain things to say about each other. I don't have that. I don't have that where presenters are talking crap about each other.
Yeah.
Dude, I experienced that at the spot I used to work. So the afternoon guy got upset because they played a promo of the other guy's shot show in his
show. Yeah.
So how can you must like she advertised now a different podcast?
Yeah.
It's part of the game. So that was like just a weird. I can relate to that. I saw it myself.
Yeah.
Where they. I mean, it's a common goal, dude. Playing for the same team.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's what I have. I mean, Tracy Lang, who's in the 9 to 12 slot before me, my lunchtime show on KFM.
Sorry to interrupt you, Word, but what is it like working with her? I feel like the way I see her, it's like Mariah Carey, to put it like that. Like she could come to the radio station in a ball gown or something, and it would be completely normal. Just that aura that comes from her.
Nancy, let me tell you, she has come to the studio already in a ball gown. I don't know. I can't even remember what the occasion was. There was something happening that day, and then she decided she's going to like dress up in the theme of whatever was being celebrated that day, and it worked. You know, that's just Tracy Lang, and I can tell you this much: like that woman, like really, I have like a major respect for Tracy, and how she's helped me when I started at Cave and continues to. I can have like a very deep conversation with her about something that's not even related to radio, and she will listen and we will just talk. She has that same kind of relationship with Darren Simpson because he's on before her, so they also have these long conversations. She and Carl come a long way from Good Hope days as well, so they have so we all just have. I can go to Darren and like ask him anything, and he'll be willing to help me, you know, give advice. Carl and I also come from Good Hope days as well. We can have a conversation at any time. Any of the other you can name them, whoever's there. Liesel van der Westhuizen, Brandon Lee, Mitch Madiana, our youngest one, Jutta Hermanus, Jeremy van Wyk. We are all like cool with each other. There's no hidden like animosity, like this and that and whatever. I get none of that. And that makes my experience. Yeah. Now I don't have to stress about that. I can just focus on my show and make that the best possible product that's on air at that time. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Something that I love about you in terms of in everything that I've come across, whether I'm reading up an article about you, whether it's an interview or anything, you are always speaking about your wife.
Yeah.
I absolutely
to the annoyance of some listeners.
No, I would love that somebody is that vocal about me. That's not hiding me like those undercover lovers or something that. Yeah.
I know about those. Sneaky links, side chicks. Oh yeah. No, I'm incredibly proud of my wife. She's sitting right here, and she doesn't want to be on. You know, I've explained this already. But she's learning now. She's starting to do her own TikToks as well.
Yes,
so
I saw with the NPO.
She's incredible. I tell her all the time. My mom even reminds me, and my mom tells her from time to time. It's like when my son was younger, he said he prays that he will have a good wife one day, and I forgot that I had that conversation when I was much younger with my mom, and then it's like, yeah, my prayers were answered. It's not every day that you find someone where we might not 100% complement each other in every way, right? But at least what we both bring to the table is that willingness to listen to each other and each other's point of view, even if we don't like what the other one is saying at that time. But your spouse is supposed to be that mirror for you. And in every way, I think we were both mature enough to enter the relationship like that, where we both have the understanding that in order for a relationship to work, both have to want to make it work. And if you don't have that, if one wants to make it work and the other one is like constantly maybe finding faults, then it's not going to work. So both will have to want to make it work. And in order to do that, you have to be willing to accept that not everything about you is perfect. And that stuff about you needs working on. So many times I see people like on social media that's like, I want somebody to love me for me with all my flaws and all my bullshit. And I'm like, can I say bullshit?
Yes, it's fine.
And I'm like, but why do you have to stay being an arsehole? Why do you have to stay with the bullshit? Why can't you work on your bullshit? You know, for the sake of the other person. Why do they have to deal with your bullshit all the time? You know, rather work on that so that both of you can just be liquor together and with each other. And if it happens on both sides, then there's a recipe for like just a beautiful relationship. I mean, I don't know how many people can say that. I see a lot of people where men have these hobbies to get away from the spouse. It's either fishing.
Yes.
Or it's the cycling.
Some say running as well.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
But the thing is, not if you're bringing your wife with you on the run, you know what I mean?
Makes sense.
So there's runs that I do on my own. There's runs that we do together. There's runs that I do with friends. So, you know, a lot of people do these things to try and get away from their spouse. And we can't stand to be apart from each other for long periods of time. I do understand that you need your own space also. Where you do that's also healthy, where you do something maybe for 30, 40 minutes, an hour a day, where you do something just for you to unwind and to relax and to get away from everyone. And that's why she wonders why I'm so long in the toilet. But I mean, that's the sanctuary. Men will understand that's the sanctuary.
I can relate. My wife worked in Joburg. So she actually stayed here, but she would commute during the week. Mondays I would drop her at the airport, fetch her Friday or Thursday.
Yeah.
It was hectic for a couple of years actually. And we just argue over nothing. And then when she got a job in Joburg, I mean in Cape Town, and now all of a sudden everything just works out itself.
Yeah.
We were just missing each other really, man. But you don't know how to get to that point to tell your spouse like, okay, dude, it's like this. Because sometimes we don't even know our own feelings because it's complicated. The brain is the male is very complicated, really.
Actually, the male is quite simple, really. To be totally honest, but what is complex is that we haven't always been taught, or we haven't always learned how to communicate what is happening inside. And
100%.
And the relationship that I have with my wife is, you must be honest enough to say like, listen, I'm going to tell you something now, and I just want to vent.
Yeah.
I don't need advice right now. I don't need help right now. I just want to get this off my chest. Whether it is something that they've done or said that bothered you, or whether it's something at work or something completely unrelated to them, but like, I don't need your help right now. I just want to just get this off my chest, and once I say it, I'll feel better. And they can be that buff, that sponge, or that punching bag is not the right terminology. It's almost like allow me to empty whatever is inside there, and they'll have moments where they do it for you, where you need to be the one to accept the baggage that they are unloading. And then that's why you also need that time apart, so that you can decompress whatever was loaded upon you, and you can think about it, come back, and when you're ready to actually talk about it, where the help part of it comes in, then you can have that conversation. But you have to be willing to listen. We went through, what's that, Franklin Covey, or the whole 7 habits thing, where listening to understand instead of listening to respond.
Yes. Because
so many times we were like, this is my comeback. This is what I want to say in return. Instead of like just sitting, listening to what they're saying, trying to put yourself in that person's shoes and see where they're coming from. And it's already hard doing it with your spouse. And I imagine doing it with kids as well. Because when they grow up, and they become teenagers and young adults, you have to address them differently to when they were toddlers. So, yeah.
I'm going to send this podcast link to my ex.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So that he can understand. This was an issue also.
Yeah.
It was like constantly like, just listen, hear me out, allow me to process this.
Yeah.
But he was always quick with solutions and fixing it. It's like, just give me a moment to,
Yeah.
you know.
But that is a male. I do it a lot. Where I want to just get to the not just get to the point, but you want to see your loved ones not in pain, man. So
Yes.
like even my friend, like if I tell my friend something, he will immediately say, "Okay, how are we gonna solve this?"
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not that we're not listening, but it's just we hate seeing our loved ones in pain, man.
Yeah.
We want to resolve it as soon as possible, man.
So
I
for
feel junk sometimes if I get jump to that.
Yeah.
But I can't help it, man.
now for myself and my wife, it's the total opposite. She's the problem solver.
Okay.
She's the troubleshoot queen. So like if there's an issue, sometimes I had to teach her, even with the kids, like maybe the kids don't want you to immediately go into problem solver mommy mode. Sometimes they just want you to listen to what they're saying first, and then later on we can cover the solutions. And somebody told me also that it was Tracy actually that told me not too long ago.
Wise lady.
She told me like, yeah, but did you ever maybe think that your wife doesn't want to see you not happy?
Yeah.
So she wants to make sure, she wants to get to the point where she's solving your problem so that you can be happy and then we're both happy. You know, but you don't always need that. You know, that maybe is needed at a later stage. At that moment when you're like emotional about it and hypersensitive about it, all you want is like, let me just get it off my chest. Just listen, then we chill. Tomorrow, I'll come to my senses and be like, now let's talk about solutions. So you have to find that balance. Because when she goes into problem solver mode, then there's also a change in the tone of voice, and I had to like tell her also like, babe, sometimes the kids don't want to hear that tone, because if you use that tone, they're not going to listen to you. They switch off already. So let's first listen. We come up with a solution later or tomorrow or the next day. In the same way, she taught me a lot about myself, where she was like, okay, now you're being your dad, no? Now you're being your dad. And then like I hated that. That was like a trigger for me, like, don't tell me that I'm trying to be like, and then after I was like, damn, I am being like my dad now. I opened my mouth and my dad came out in that moment. But it takes you to actually have that maturity to be like, you know what, she's right. I was now like my dad in that situation, something that I said I wasn't going to be. Don't get me wrong, I love my dad. You know, I have major respect for him, but obviously all parents are flawed. There are certain things that,
100%.
you know, about them that you didn't agree with.
But we become them.
Yeah. We
is.
do
It is.
inevitably.
I was telling somebody a couple of days ago over the weekend, my father used to chill on a Saturday, have his dope, and then make food.
Yeah.
I do exactly the same thing. And I was just taking something out of the oven, and I realized I just pictured my father do that back in the day. It's like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
But it's good memories.
Look,
But
I mean, in your case, I mean, making food, that is actually a good thing that you inherited from your dad. But I mean,
there is sides of that. Look, they lived in a different time, man.
Exactly.
And it was a lot of negativity. The country was different, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So I at first I used to hate it as well, but I try to be where I can improve from that.
Exactly.
Like be a better version of him. But there's understanding as well that comes with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that's that empathy. You have to understand where they came from. But sometimes, you know, like I'll go into a mode where I'm lecturing my kids, and then like that's totally my dad. And sometimes that lecture will go on and on and on, and you go around in circles, and my wife will be like, get to the point. Like the kids are also like, you must see when we're at family gatherings and my dad goes into that mode, and then my mom is like, you can see my mom's like, and my mom's like, Archie. It's like, or like knocking him. I was like, Archie. So I see myself going down that road a lot when it comes to those situations, and then my wife has to pull me back and like, I'm being like your dad right now, and then I'm like, okay, yeah. At first I'm like, no, I'm not, and then afterwards like, yeah, I was. But I mean, it's all part of the growing up process, I guess. Yeah.
This is a silly, obvious question. I would already know the answer, but still, with regards to voice, is this your voice 24/7? You know that you sometimes have people where it's like you have your normal voice and then you have like an office voice or that radio voice.
I'm gonna be honest with you. My voice didn't always sound like this. Okay, so my voice was like your average colored kid growing up or whatever. But you get degrees, we all colored here. You get degrees of like where you are with your humness. And when I got into radio specifically, which was in the year 2003, so that's 20 years now.
How did you go about getting into radio?
So
answer that.
Okay, I'll get to the voice first, and then I'll get to the getting into radio. So I thought listening to radio at the time. I mean, I grew up listening to Nigel Pearce, Graham White, Bradley Knight, these guys, Sugar, and when I first heard Nigel Pearce, I thought that dude was white. I thought he was white. And when I saw him for the first time, I got a fright. I'm like, is that the voice that's coming out of that man's mouth? And I thought, this is what my voice needs to sound like if I want to get into broadcasting. It's different now. You can be whatever you want to be, right? As long as you are authentic and people. So people of color will know especially that about code switching. We code switch all the time. We have a phone voice. We have a radio voice. We have like an at-home voice. I've tried my best to try and get the two voices to be the same all the time. So even now on KFM, when I was at Magic, the station I was before this, they were still very much old school. So it was very much about this. And then when I got to KFM, my station manager was like, I like what you did on KFM. I like your humor and what you did and whatever. But this conversation that we're having with each other right now, I want to hear more of that on air. So there's still a degree of like code switching going on. I have a different voice when I speak to my mom. I become a child again when I speak to my mom. So, mommy, very soft and whatever. And then like when I'm in this situation, then I sound like this. And also doing voiceover work. So with voiceover work, you know that it's going to be, it has to sound different. There's a certain tone that I need to do to deliver, whether it's hard sell, medium sell, soft sell, or whatever. It isn't always conversational. So yeah, there are degrees to how my voice sounds depending on the situation that I'm in. But I'm trying my best to sort of find that happy medium. So you'll even find on KFM now, I'm rolling the R's a lot less, so I will say, it's NAZLI FREDERICKS, I won't always say Fredericks, or I will be, they live in Brackenfell and not Brackenfell or whatever. So I try, and it's been a journey over the last 20 years of actually finding my own voice. Even though I've been doing this for 20 years, I'm still finding my own voice within radio
and the times that we're living in, and the time that radio is existing, basically.
So now we can be a little bit more authentic. I can throw in a salam and or whatever kind of saying, or like a aware, or don't vise me on radio. I mean, I did some of that on Good Hope, but now I'm really like just leaning into it.
I remember when D was started at Good Hope, he got a lot of setbacks or whatever. Not setbacks, but a lot of flack for just being himself. And a lot of old school broadcasters was like, dude, but this is not, I understand he's being D, but this is not broadcasting. And I was like, at the time, I was still new in the broadcasting arena, but for me, it was like I can understand both, really. But I was more leaning to.
But can you imagine if Reddy D had to go into Good Hope and start rolling his R's and whatever? Everyone who knows D would start laughing at him. Was like, dude, that's not you. So he was that way that he speaks of, like, my people, and it is what it is and whatever. We still say that, when D's on, is like, my people, and it is what it is. And people don't actually know how well spoken Reddy D is. Just being himself. If you had to see him in a public arena and a public situation where he's maybe giving a talk to kids, about hip hop or whatever. That man is not umming and ahhing. He's fluent, but he's being himself. And the knowledge and the experience and the wisdom of Reddy D. No, it's amazing. So I'm glad that D didn't take that flack seriously of people.
We actually had him in a couple of months ago. Yeah, months ago. Yeah, we had him in very awesome guy.
Yeah,
really inspirational.
I worked the 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. slot at Good Hope for 3 years, and Reddy D was on before me, the 7 to 10 slot. That's where he started. So, Monday nights, what was he doing again on Monday nights? There was something about the, upliftment. It's the all about upliftment and positivity. And then there was Wednesday nights with the Get Busy nights. And then there was
the car show as well.
For the petrol copper nossies and whatever. I was there, like when he was doing that, I would come in at about 9:30, and then I catch the tail end of his show, or I'm listening to him on the way in. And I always used to tell him yo, D, man, I grew up listening to POC and BVK, and I saw you on TV doing the things that you're doing, and being with Shamil, right, of POC, and Ramon and all these guys, and now you're doing a show before me, on Good Hope. So I get to see you 4 nights a week. You know what an honor that is for me? Growing up and seeing you on TV and being this activist and and this voice for hip hop and doing what you're doing, and now I get to see you every day, and D, he's just thank you, the humblest guy that you will ever meet.
Now I can relate. I worked on his show as well, as producer and stuff. But that bro is really he's like a light man, and he's never negative. You know what I'm saying?
But didn't his house
yes,
and
yes.
his house burned,
and
he made something positive about it.
He did.
Yeah,
that.
He turned it into something positive. Yes, it's amazing.
That guy. I mean, all the positivity and all the goodness coming his way, he deserves, and all the accolades. I mean, he really is the grandmaster. That's why he's got that title. And the people around the world that know who Reddy D is. So for me, coming up in radio and getting to do a show after his show, and I was in radio heaven at that time. Even though doing 10 to 2 was tough, the time of the night, but yeah, they were. That was the one positive thing. I got to see him 4 nights a week. But you asked how I got into radio. So after school, I studied computer science at UCT, first year. Hated it. I thought that's what I wanted to do because I watched a movie called Hackers. I don't know if you know a movie, Hackers, from the 90s. I thought I was going to be that dude, software developer. I'm going to learn how to hack and, do all these things. Got to UCT, absolutely hated every single minute. My first subject of the day was maths. People who went to UCT will know the codes, MAM 100. 8 a.m. every single day, Monday to Friday. Absolutely hated it. At the end of that year, I didn't know how to talk to my parents about it, but I told them, listen, I can't do this. I know that you saved up a lot of money for this first year, and you only really had money for a second year. We didn't know what we were going to do in the third year. So I said, but I got to do something else. And they're like, what do you want to do? So I'm like, I want to study sound engineering because I want to get into, making music and production and working in studio. So okay, we only had money for a second year. That's a 1-year diploma course. So let's do it then. So went from almost failing my first year at UCT to graduating in the top 5 of my class doing sound engineering because I was passionate about it. And then after that, while I was working there, like I mentioned, Grant Janssen, who was in Inferno with me, he and Craig actually studied at the place that I studied at, College of Audio Engineering in Durbanville, the year before me. And they actually told me about the place, and that's when I went to go and study. And then Grant got a job at Fine Music Radio at the Artscape. Right? So they a community radio station. They play classics and jazz, classical music and jazz. And he was working there at the time, and while I was studying, he got me into Fine Music Radio. So I had a job called a duty producer. So on a Saturday morning, I would get there about 8:30. I needed to be there at 9. Got there at 8:30. First thing I have to do, wash the mugs. Then I have to put on a fresh pot of coffee, make sure that there's a full bottle of water in the water dispenser. That time, all radio stations, they have to record what they're doing 24/7. So the mechanism that they used to record everything was a VHS machine. So everything was recorded on VHS tape. So at 2 o'clock, which was the end of my shift, I had to take out the tape, put in a new tape, start recording, so that would now record for the next, 24 hours. Or printing the news and, running the desk because with classical music, there was a lot of like elderly people that were presenting shows. That was Beethoven's Fifth Symphony performed by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra in Vienna. And then they can't work the desk. I mean, they're 80 years old. 70, 80 years old, so I had to run the desk. And that's how I actually got into radio. And then from there, when Grant left Fine Music Radio, his post became available. I'm fast forwarding a bit because before that I actually worked at Musica because I needed a full-time job when I was done studying. But when he left, I went for the interview. I got his role as an assistant producer. So I would cut all the promos, any pre-recorded shows, whatever needed to be done, loading of the ads onto the system. That's what I would do. One day, while doing that job, the presenter that was supposed to present the 1 o'clock jazz show didn't show up. And it was 30 minutes to the show, so like 12:30. The show was supposed to start at 1. There's no one else there to stand in. Station manager is like, EB, you have a nice enough voice. Why didn't you do it? And we had to put together our own music. It's only an hour long, the show, but I mean, I had to scramble in the archives, get all the CDs out. What am I going to play? I was shitting bricks before that show. And then I did it. And then I was like, after the show, everybody was like, yeah, well done, nicely done. And after that, I was like, I can do this. But then a memory came back to me and I was like, you know what? I kind of willed this into existence because when I was about 16 years old, there was a movie called Pump Up the Volume with Christian Slater. That's a movie about a high school kid. He started like a pirate radio show at night at 10 o'clock. It's going to come full circle in a second. And he started a rebellion at school because there was some corruption taking place at the school. And that's where I felt like, wow, radio is really a really powerful medium. You can change lives with the medium of radio. Fast forward, so now I'm thinking like, I can actually do this. I left Fine Music Radio, wanted to do music full time because I was getting miserable at Fine Music Radio. That's when I met my wife. We were dating at the time. And she was like, babe, this place is making you miserable. You want to do music, go and do music. So I left Fine Music Radio. I did shows at Grand West. I did shows for Barnyard. I did, and then I eventually got at Ratanga Junction. They had an in-house radio station, and they had like this lunchtime show that I would perform in. So I would get there 10 o'clock, do the radio show from 10:30 until 1, do the stage show, go home. Sometimes I would be on the same day over the same period, the evening go and perform on Broadway in Short Market Street in town. So like a full day of like just grafting in music and radio. And at the time, the guy that was running Ratanga Junction, he had a studio. His name was Bruce T. And he had a studio and he was like, you know what? I know you want to get into radio. Why don't we record your demo at my studio? So I recorded a news demo and a presenter demo. And I sent it to Good Hope. In fact, what happened was my wife was working with Bradley Knight on the videography side of things. It's all interconnected, this whole thing. And Bradley actually told her, you know what? Contract period at Good Hope at the SABC is around about April. That's when they start their new financial year. But October the previous year, or maybe Jan, send in your demo then because then they might be looking for new talent. So I sent it in, both demos, and Gerard, the program, is he still program manager? Still pro. Damn. G. Miller. Gerard contacted me while I was walking into Ratanga. I was about to do the show, and he was like, EB, Gerard's voice, EB. And he was like, I got your demo, and I want you to come in and do a voice test. So I go in, I do the interview. I'm thinking I'm getting a show. And he's like, no, we didn't actually get your presenter demo. We got your news demo. And we want you to do news. And I was like, okay. But if I do news, is there a way for me to get into... It's like, yeah, a lot of people try and get in that way, but, we want you to do news. So 2007, April 2007, that's when I started at Good Hope officially as a newsreader. And I was working weekends at the time, 12 to 3, with Ayanda Tini. She was the host of the weekends lunchtime show. Did that for a year. Into the second year, that's when things started shaking up at Good Hope. So Ryan O'Connor was doing the afternoon drive show at Good Hope. And Paul Playden had just started. And he was doing the graveyard shift. Weekdays 2 to 6 a.m. Right? Yeah. So there was that whole drama with Ryan leaving Good Hope, and he went to KFM. So they needed to actually fill that slot, afternoon drive. The management decided, let's take a chance on Paul Playden. So let Paul Playden do the afternoon drive show. I had cultivated a really nice relationship with Tyrone Paulson at the time, who was doing the chart show on Good Hope on a Saturday. After that meeting where they announced Paul was doing afternoon drive, Tyrone grabs me and he's like, you're gonna march into Gerard's office now after this meeting, and you're gonna tell him that you want 2 to 6 a.m. I'm like, okay. So I march into his office, but my heart is beating. I'm like, Gerard, please let me do 2 to 6 a.m. He's like, EB, you already have somebody like in mind for 2 to 6. I'm like, okay, I'll make a deal with you. All right. Is this person like set for the show, or are you trialing them? No, we're giving them a trial period. I'm like, for how long? No, for 3 weeks. I'm like, okay, for the next 3 weeks, let that person do the first half of the week. I'll do the other half of the week. And after 3 weeks, then you decide who takes over weekdays 2 to 6 a.m.
You already got balls, eh?
Yeah.
So that's in a good
I don't know
way.
where it came from, but I did it, and then he said, "Okay, well, let's see what happens." And then after the 3 weeks, so I got the show. So I was doing weekdays 2 to 6 a.m. and doing news on the weekends. So I was working 7 days a week at the time. Did that for 7 months, and they said, "You know what? You're actually really good as a presenter." I'm like, "I told y'all." That's why I sent in my presenter team. I didn't want to do news. And Good Hope was the only station where people who aren't journalists would read the news. There were only like Vanya Kluter-Collison is actually a journalist. Sandra Rosenberg is actually a journalist. They studied, So for them reading the news, there's credibility. I didn't study journalism, so I didn't feel credible reading the news. I wanted to be a presenter, and specifically music radio. And then, so I did that for 7 months. After that, so Gerard was like, "No, you're actually good at this. We don't need you to do news on the weekends. Just focus on presenting." So I'm like, "Okay, cool." So did that for a few months. When the next contract period rolled around, so they gave me the 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. slot. And I did that for 3 years. And then that is, if you think 2 to 6 is taxing, 10 to 2 is actually worse. Reason being, for 2 to 6, you can go and sleep at 8, wake up at about midnight and get yourself ready for the show. Come back from 6 a.m. and maybe sleep another few hours. 10 o'clock, you're not sleeping at all the night. You're only getting home 3 a.m. and then you're trying to fall asleep. At the time, we had my son. That made it even more difficult. My wife was working a day job. I'm coming home. My son has been born. It's very tough. And it was a low point. I mean, it was And it was also around about 2009, 2010. We're coming out of a recession. There's World Cup going on, but I'm freaking depressed because I'm not getting any sleep. And towards the end of the third year, I told Gerard, like, I can't, man. I can't do this anymore. And you know what my goal is? I want to do weekday daytime. And he's like, yeah, but at the moment our lineup is strong. We can't shake that up. And Nick Hammond had started during that time as well, and he was doing Weekend Breakfast, and then he got the call to move to 5 FM. And then I was like, please give me a weekend. But before Weekend Breakfast, I did weekend afternoons with TK and DJ Lloyd. It was the freaking weekend that we did. And then after doing that for 2 years, I was like, yo, I need Lloyd and TK to flourish on their own. And let me do Weekend Breakfast. So I did that I had a 3-year contract. And then I still had a year left on the contract. And I was like, I'm still waiting for my dream, which is weekday daytime. And Jared was like, not in so many words, saying like, that's not going to happen. And I was like, well, then I'm out. I can't anymore. Like if I continue working here, I will still just be doing the same thing and not moving to where I want to be. And then I left radio completely for it. I even like unfriended and unfollowed everyone that worked with me in radio, like, because I didn't want to have anything to do with radio at all. I just wanted to focus on music. I'll do voiceovers, anything else. I want nothing to do with radio. A year later, I'm like, the only thing that's going to earn me real money is radio. And I got to get back into it. It's because I can't go and study something else now. It's going to take too long. And I need to provide for my family. The only thing that I'm good at naturally, and that's going to earn me a decent salary, is if I get back into radio. And that is when Magic 828 AM, they were a commercial radio station, but they were on the AM band. Guy McDonald, that was the breakfast show host at Good Hope, he then he got recruited by Magic. They were carrying on for a year. Graham White was also working there as program manager, so I hit up Graham. I was like, dude, I want to get back into radio, but I don't want my own show. I don't want to get thrust straight into the spotlight. I'd like to be a contributor. So they're like, okay, how's your sport? I'm like, it's okay. I know my sport reasonably well. It's like, well, we're looking for a sport reader on the breakfast show with Guy and Kanya. Kanya does the news and the traffic, and you can do sport. But again, it was like a trial period. Let's see what the chemistry is like. So I went in, I did a trial for a month. The boss liked me, and then I got that slot as the sport presenter on the breakfast show. There was a lot of toxicity at Magic. Myself, Guy, and Kanya, we were sort of like we were each other's protection as a show, because there were a lot of, you must understand that it was a lot of the old school radio guys that were involved in that. And I don't want to paint all of them with the same brush, but there were elements of that old school, like, who are you, young colored guy, wanting to tell us about, how to do radio. Like, we the originals, And myself, Guy, and Kanya, we were each other's protection. So as long as we were in our bubble doing the best that we could on the breakfast show, we were okay. There was a lot of politics happening in and around the office, and that's why I say, like, I had to unlearn a lot of that kind of stuff coming to KFM. A year or two goes by, and there was a change in management, and then a new broom sweeps clean, and they were like, EB, we want you and Kanya to head up the afternoon drive show. So I'm like, yeah. I went from almost being fired to now, you want me to do the afternoon drive show? Because the old boss was now gone. He's like, yeah. You're going to do and the listenership at Magic was older and, just being honest, more Caucasian, right? So now you have this younger brown kid that's now going to head up an afternoon drive show after another guy who they loved, who was a legend at Capital Radio up in KZN, and now I'm coming in. How do you think the listeners are going to react to that? So I told Kanye, I was also nervous about it, and I told Kanye, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have so much fun on the show. Despite any negative comments that come through, we're going to have so much fun on the show, and we're going to just put on the best damn radio show, afternoon drive show that we can. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to hit them with their own music that they like. Let's not try and, gooi in our R&B or whatever the case is. Like, let us stick to the script and play the music that Magic is known for. But also, I know what they really want. And what they really wanted was a dose of rock music. So I saw this idea on YouTube, and I saw this guy doing a rock song at 5 o'clock every afternoon. So you would say, it's clock out time, and then he plays a rock song. So I'm like, that's cool. You know what the saying? Okay, this is very rude. Okay, rock out with your out, right? So I decided to switch that up and say, it's 5 o'clock. He said on his show in the States, clock out time. Let's say it, rock out when you clock out. Okay? So every afternoon at 5 o'clock, we're just going to play an epic rock song. I'm talking about like Def Leppard, or it's AC/DC, these major bands with like these, or Journey, these epic like rock songs. And the listeners I started creeping in their hearts. And they were like, if no one else is doing this, it's only maybe like one show on a weekend that we get this dose of rock, and now you're giving it to us every day. And then when I decided to leave, when KFM came calling, a lot of those older white listeners were like, EB, you know what? When you first started here and took over from the legend Dave Gaselli, we had our doubts. We didn't think that you were suited for this radio station. We didn't like you, and we didn't like what you were about. But you actually turned us around, and I was like, thank you. That's a great compliment to receive.
Yeah.
But at the time, KFM came calling, and that's also an interesting story. Do we have time to go into that?
Yes.
Okay.
We've got time.
Okay. So now I'm going to let you in on another thing about my wife, okay? My wife has some kind of like psychic ability, okay? I know a lot of people think like, oh, but you know what? she really does, okay? So again, another full circle moment. Remember what happened at Good Hope? Ryan O'Connor left.
Yeah.
Paul Playden got afternoon drive. That's how I got my first solo show on Good Hope. What happened at KFM a few years ago? 2016, 2017? Ryan O'Connor left KFM. Not left KFM, he left the breakfast show. Right? And Darren got the breakfast show, right?
And then Carl Wasty got the
afternoon drive show.
Okay,
that
part I remember.
Right? So Ryan was doing the lunchtime show. Right? So 2019, Ryan O'Connor announces that he's leaving KFM. My wife was in the car with my son at the time, doing the school run, picking him up from school. She hears the announcement that he's leaving KFM. She turns to my son and says, they're going to give Dads that slot. I kid you not, right? That same day, I get a call from KFM, from the station manager. Like, hi EB. Yeah, it's Steve here from KFM. Do you want to meet for a coffee? They have to do it that way, because like otherwise, like the rumor mill just starts going, and people will be like, what's happening. I come home. I tell my wife, babe, you have no idea who just called me now. She's like, KFM. I'm like, how the heck did you know that? She's like, today Ryan O'Connor announced that he was leaving KFM. I told our son that they're going to give you that slot. I'm like, no. You know what I think is going to happen? What I think is going to happen is somebody else, maybe from the weekend, is gonna get the lunchtime show, and they need somebody now to fill in that weekend slot, right? So I have coffee with the station manager, and he's like, "We want you to take over the lunchtime show." I'm like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." He was like, "Ryan O'Connor show." It's like, "Yeah, well, you heard the announcement that he's leaving. And we want you to start in Feb of 2020. So I was like, okay. And it's funny how God, universe, whatever you believe in works, because if I said no and stayed at Magic, I would have gotten fired because they were downsizing. Money wasn't that great. We head into COVID and whatever. Yeah. So I wouldn't have had a job right now if I didn't say yes to the KFM gig. And then, so I told him, listen, the only reason why I've never in my entire career done a weekday lunchtime show is because of Fridays. And I have to go to mosque on a Friday. And he was like, without even flinching, without even blinking, he was like, we can work around that. I was like, you serious? Yeah, we can pre-record about an hour now. How long do you need? So I'm like, I need to leave at 12:30. I'll be back like before 2. He's like, yeah, we can pre-record that hour and a half every Friday. I'll put it in your contract. That's what you need to do. I was like, holy crap. It's like, yeah, but we also need you to do Saturday breakfast. I'm like, where do I sign, man? Where do I sign? I'm out of here. And immediately I got home. I told my wife, this is the deal. It's like, I told you. And I'm like, yeah, you did. What do I do now? It's like, you put in notice as soon as possible and get out of there. Get out of Magic. Accept that offer that they're giving you right now, because they wanted me to start on the 24th of Feb, 2020. And yeah. So that's when we got the ball rolling. Even up until the point where I was doing my first photo shoot, I still thought, this is like punked. Somebody's gonna come out somewhere with a camera and say like, psych, you didn't really get the show. Like, we were just messing with you. But it happened. And I still remember when they announced it on Facebook, the comments were like, some people were like, who knew me from Good Hope, were like, oh, he's back. Other people were like, who is this? Like, we have that was my that video over there. That was my first day at KFM. What they did was they got the Kaapse Klopse to come, and
that's a hell of a welcome, eh?
Yeah.
That is Steve Werner for you, our station manager. He thought of these kind of things, and there's a video. I'm fighting back tears there, and he got the whole staff of the building to come there and cheer me on while I'm walking. This is all like before I'm going to do my first live show. All of this commotion, right?
He knows what he's doing.
And I'm about to get Tracy here. Tracy's welcome. There's a big hug from Tracy Lang. And then, I'm about to do my first show. Yeah.
Wow.
And on that first show, they helped me with content. They got Jawahir Peterson and Imran from Imran Ali from St. Ooster as my first guests to interview on my very first show. They brought me Kusistas like for my first show. They said like, call your mom to talk to you on your first show. I was like, for real? Like, all of these things. He wanted me, my personality. They didn't want to create a persona for me to be.
Tell me, is he the same guy that hired Sharon Barnes?
I think so, because I think that's when the shift in the management came about. So I think he was the one that got
He's
Shirley
actually
in.
Brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
Because she didn't play a big part in Good Hope's lineup.
No.
But he just grabbed her.
He saw something in her in the same way he saw something in me that I could contribute. She's like one of the biggest personalities now at
Very
KFM.
down-to-earth person, eh?
Let me tell you,
with
I worked with her very briefly at Good Hope. So I was still doing weekend breakfast. She started on news there. Very, very like green, wet behind the ears. Like I think she's Stellenbosch, right? So she came out of that MFM stable of like talent that came out of MFM. And I speak under correction. I don't know if you actually, she must correct me if I'm wrong. But coming out of Stellenbosch, doing that kind of work, and then we were also surprised like that she got that call up so quickly to KFM from Good Hope. But clearly Stephen saw something in her that no one else did, and pairing her with one of the biggest radio personalities in the country. People don't understand how big Darren Simpson is, right? There's a lot of people that compete with him, that hate on him. But listen, Darren Simpson, Wackhead is huge, bro. Like Wackhead is not just nationally in radio in the country, internationally, people know who Darren Simpson is. And so you put Sherlyn Barnes with him, and then initially, I mean, Sibs came from the previous breakfast show and then integrated. Now you have Darren, you have Sherlyn, you have Sibs, right? Facts, according to the numbers, everything, stats, you can look it up yourself. They are the biggest breakfast show in the country.
Oh.
If you look at radio stations in a similar market in terms of like music and the demographics, right? Obviously, you're gonna get like your national radio stations, like your metros, or like even the PBS stations like Ukhozi have like much bigger listenership. So obviously, they in terms of listenership, they have like a bigger numbers. But I'm talking about in terms of like universal appeal across all demographics and radio stations that will compete on a similar level. They're the biggest. So now I get to work with them every single day. I get to learn from not only Darren, Sherlyn, Sibs, all the people that work in their team behind them, because when Darren is off, I have to stand in for Darren. So it's important that I get along with the people and get to learn from them. And when I've worked at other radio stations, if you fill in for someone, they give you the cold shoulder, like you're just a stand-in.
Yeah.
And who do you think you are trying to take over, you know? I don't get that at KFM. When I fill in for Darren, every single member on that team will do everything they can to make sure I'm comfortable and presenting the show in the best way possible.
Tell me, what do you think is the future of radio and TV while we're at it? But most importantly, radio.
I can't speak to TV because I don't have as much experience. I've done very small things here and there. I mean, someone like Tracy would be better equipped to answer that question because she's now worked extensively in both mediums. But the future of radio, I think it's still going to be around for a very, very long time. People look at the podcasting space and it's exciting, and you get to do whatever you want to in the podcasting space. But it's going to take a while before it gets to that level where it's really going to take over radio. I think radio, somebody said they've been calling for the death of radio now for decades, and it hasn't happened yet. Radio still...
Yeah, was it Queen wrote a song about it, like the love of radio and how it's, you know?
Look, things will change and evolve, but it's never going to really die. It's never really going to go away. And as long as you have people that still are being authentic on radio, then people connect with authenticity. That's what people want. People say like, yeah, but I listen to my playlist on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. Yeah, that's fine if you want to listen to the music that you want to listen to. But when you still want to connect with someone and someone that you can relate to, then you're going to go to radio for that. And not everybody's going to be your cup of tea. Make no mistake.
So you mentioned when you were at Magic, you took the rock and you there was an audience that the Caucasians, as you put it. You know? So do you think that radio in general does that for Cape Town? Do they really connect the masses really? Or are they only focused on pleasing the advertising dollar?
So when it comes to music selection, every radio station has a different way in which they do it. When I was at Good Hope, we had a playlist committee. So I don't know if it's Wednesdays or Tuesdays. Wednesdays we used to get together. You'd sit there for like 2 hours and listen to snippets of songs, and then we vote like, okay, yeah, that's cool, not so cool, whatever. It's a bit of a flawed system because when you're sitting in that cold environment and listening to the music, your guard is up so much and you're listening to everything so critically. I heard a song that I voted no on in the meeting on a different radio station while I was driving, and I was like, yo, this is a cool song. And then I came back to Grant and MD, who were working in the music department at Good Hope, and I'm like, yo, this is good. Like, but we played it for you in the meeting and you voted no. Here's the spreadsheet. You remember? I'm like, damn. And that's when I realized, like, the listening experience when you're listening to radio in your car, in your office, wherever it is at home, is very different from sitting there and listening to a song like this. And by the time you get to song number 75, you're numb and everything sounds crap.
Yeah.
You know? So the difference is that what radio stations are doing now is there's a lot more focused group type of formulas to get the music. So before people maybe jump down radio stations' throats about music, you must understand that whatever your opinions on music are, there are a lot of listeners that want a certain sound from their radio station. So when you test music on them, that is what it's based on. It isn't that music choice isn't based on advertising. That isn't based on what the advertisers want at all. It's based on really what listeners want. And if there's a song that you don't like, chances are, like, that song, you are in the minority of who doesn't like that song. And then you'll be amazed at the majority of who actually likes that song. We who work in in radio will get tired of a song. And we're like, oh, not the song again. And we get, so every so often, like, the WhatsApps and say, like, yo, I'm so tired, the song is overplayed. Chances are when that song gets performed live at a show, or if you put it in your set right now, people are going to go, boss, like, but why? You said you were tired of hearing the song, but now when you hear it in a different setting, now you're in love with it all of a sudden.
What I like about what Grant did when I was there, I noticed there's a cycle. So it will be in a cycle, the song will be in a cycle, then it will leave again.
Yeah.
And then next cycle. I like the way that Grant did that. Yeah.
So that's a similar category that all radio stations follow. You see, every radio station has a different format based on the audience, not really advertisers. So they play the music that's appeals to their audience that they have, and you will get what's known as an A category, B category, then the South African category of music and whatever, tempo, genre, all of that goes into the flow of how you like, because you can't have like all the time, or you can't have like 2 or 3 slow jams in a row unless you're doing an hour of love songs or whatever the case is. So you have to have that ebb and flow in the music, and there will be times when a song is now being overplayed, then it will go in what's known as a rested category. So it'll be arrested for a while, and then you don't hear that song for a while. Then a few months later it comes like, oh, I haven't heard this one, and now it sounds refreshing again, hearing it again, even though it's an old song. So yeah, it does go through those cycles. Where the advertisers are concerned is, advertisers are concerned about what you are putting on air is garnering the numbers, the listenership. That is what we are worried about as advertisers. Yeah, I'm putting myself now in an advertiser's shoes. We just worried about listenership. So if you have 1.1 million listeners, I want to advertise with you because I want to get my product known to 1.1 million listeners. And if you only have 100,000 listeners, I'm rather going to go to the people that have 1.1 million listeners, even if it's more expensive. That's where the advertisers, that's where the role comes in. So we as presenters and the station as a whole, because we are a music radio station, you have to make sure that the balance between the music that you play, it has to be music that keeps listeners tuned in, and your content as a presenter and how you present that content. Are you engaging enough? Are people wanting to be a part of your show? If that pushes up the listenership, advertisers are happy because the numbers are up. We happily advertise with you guys because at the end of the day, that's going to generate in a return on investment, which results in our revenues going up. So then it's a win-win for everybody.
I hear you. It's just that sometimes I feel that what you hear if you put it on the radio, it's not really what you see around in Cape Town. That's the only thing that I hear there's a business side of things, that's 100%.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel that if we're going to use, we have an opportunity to use this medium or that medium to create change.
Yeah.
In society. And I think sometimes the medium isn't used properly to attain that it possibly can do. You know what I'm saying?
Look, it depends on the radio station and the audience. When listeners listen to KFM, they know what they're going to get, and that is what KFM's strength has been all these years. I know if I listen to Darren Shillen and Sibs on KFM mornings, I'm going to laugh my ass off. And I'm going to get some liquor music in between, but mainly I'm going to be entertained. Right? So they know what they're going to get. And a show like that isn't really going to address politics. Right? You might listen to Aidan Thomas on Heart FM, and then you're going to get a bit more politics. Or when Nigel was still on Good Hope, you're going to get a bit of politics.
100%.
But you know what you're going to get because you know who Nigel is, you know who Aidan is, and you know who Darren is. And Darren knows himself. He knows what he brings to the table. In the same way Tracy knows. We all have like our sort of like nuances that we lean into as presenters. So for Tracy, it's very much about also having fun and being lighthearted, but at the same time, pushing for the empowerment of women. You know, with Women Crush Wednesdays, or having these very informative interviews with different, like, sort of like interesting topics that can help society. Over the years, I've had to cultivate what are my strengths. I love movies and TV shows, so that's going to be an element. I love music, so that's going to be an element. Now, as of late, I like shining a light on community events. So now, if you have a community event that's happening over the weekend, you and I now highlight that without you having to pay for advertising. I'm giving you that space as a community. If you have a fundraiser or whatever, so now I'm leaning into that. And everybody has different nuances. Mitch Madiana is a big sporting nut. So he knows what he's talking about when it comes to different kinds of sport. But no one's really going to delve into politics and heavy news. If you want that, go to Cape Talk, who's our sister station in Prime Media. That's where you're going to get all of that serious stuff. And people who listen to Cape Talk aren't necessarily going to be listening to KFM and vice versa. You get those that maybe want to switch depending on what your mood is. We channel hop all the time. I'm listening to the competition. I listen to us. What are you talking about? What are you playing? What are we not playing? Because also, you know, I'm a fan of radio. So if you have something cool that you're doing and now you may be on my heels a little bit, I need to step up my game. It keeps me on my toes. What am I going to do to make sure that my show stays on top? So when it comes to creating mediums of change, you must know your audience. If you may be at a radio station where that's not what the audience wants, you forcing your way isn't going to help. Then rather go to the radio station that's going to give you that platform where you can be that medium maybe for heavy change. But I believe that we can create change in different ways. And there's ways that you can, like even now, making a difference with highlighting people's community events. I mean, that can also be a medium for change, because if I'm highlighting it on my show and I have between 200,000 and 1.1 million people listening, if 50 or 100 extra people go to that community event because of my announcement, I'm not getting a cent from that. Yeah. Right? But that community event, all those vendors at that fundraiser are now maybe getting money from 50 to 100 extra people going there. So in that way, I've kind of made a change and a difference already. So you have to choose your battles wisely, and you need to know where you fit in the mix. We can't all be like heavy all the time, and we can't also maybe always be, everything is a joke, but you have to find, that's why KFM is all about authenticity. No one on KFM is like anyone else on the station. There aren't two EBs there. There aren't two Darrens. There aren't two Carl Wasties. There's only one Tracy Lang. There's only one of each of us. And I think they did that specifically to show that diversity and that representation of Western Cape and Cape Town. I mean, I'm the only Muslim guy on air on KFM. So that tells you a lot about what their thinking was of like, listen, the Muslim community in the Western Cape is huge, and 100%. Do we have representation? Here's your representation, and for me, that's a big thing. And the fact that I never actually saw that angle, and the fact that they accommodating me by having me pre-record an hour and a half of my show to go to mosque on a Friday, Eid, no problem. I tell them, listen, I'm only going to know if it's Eid.
Yes.
The night before.
Yes.
So be on standby, with my stand-in like the day before, the day after that. No problem. They say they want that. They're like, EB, talk more about what's happening with, the Western Cape Town Muslim community. The sayings that you have, the words that you use. Educate people. Talk about that kind of stuff. And I was like, wow. Really? Like, yes, that's what we want you. We want more of you. Talk about that's why one of my features that I had on my show was called the Music Masala. I could have called it the Monday Music Mashup, which it was at Magic. But they're like, so I'm like, Music Masala. Yes, let's do that. And if people want to know what is this masala, here's an opportunity for you to explain where you get it from. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I answered your question.
Definitely. Sometimes we don't see the small changes that happened, man. And you look at other forms and other countries and how they represent the community and stuff like that, and you think we're behind with it, but you don't really see the changes that. I mean, look at the changes that you mentioned now, and the changes that Grandmaster did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it started 10 years ago. Was it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you're right, actually. Yeah, there is changes made.
And now Reddy D, he's doing the lunchtime show, right? On
daytime,
Good.
yeah.
So, I mean, previously he was only doing the nighttime show. So now you have somebody that sounds like Reddy D does doing a weekday daytime show. That shows a lot of growth in the music in the radio landscape. Whereas in the 80s, no one that sounded like us would even make it on air. So that shows you also like where the changes come in over the decades with radio, and why that is now more representative of what's happening, culturally in the Western Cape, and even where music is concerned, you will be amazed at how people like what is familiar. They like what they know. So even where the music is concerned, if you think like, but there's so many new songs that come out, we let that song grow, and then we will play it, and then it becomes familiar for people. And I know like DJs are, especially club DJs. I know I've seen many status updates where they say like they want to get back to the days where we educating the audience about new music. We also have to know you have to know your crowd, you have to know your audience. Sometimes like you're going to try and educate them on something new, it might not always work. So let that song grow organically, and then that's why when you're playing in a club, you would know like for the club owner, he wants feet on the floor and feet by the bar, but feet through the door, and you got to keep them there as a DJ. So our work is kind of similar with the content that we have to produce on air is to keep listeners on the proverbial floor, which is listening to the radio. So you'll be amazed like at how much people want what they know. And that's why when Ryan left KFM, that was a huge hole to leave. I mean, a massive name in the radio landscape. Now he's leaving. So whoever goes into that slot, best believe there's a lot of flack you're going to get. And kudos to KFM for creating a buffer of time, because he left in December. I only started in Feb. So there was like 2 or 3 months for people to sort of like get over things and like calm down. And then I came in, and then it was cool from then. Yeah.
No, thanks. You answered my question.
We can't sum up your life in an hour, eh?
No, is it?
No,
it's been an hour and a half.
Yes,
Time flies in the Zoom. Time flies in the Zoom.
Yeah. Your writing ability, the piece that you did, tribute to the Bokke, and then also, is there any direction towards film, television, film?
So I've acted in a few things, mainly like short films. I've done a few ads. Actors will know that, look, I'm not a trained actor. So when you go to like these castings for ads and whatever, it's very tiring. You have to make your own way there. You're using petrol, you're using money for transport, and you're acting certain things, and you don't always get the part, and it can be frustrating. So, I mean, I enjoy acting, but now I do things where if I know the director or the producer and they're like, you know what, we want you to come and do something on this, and then I'll do it. But going for castings, I don't have the time, and it can also be, it can knock the wind out of yourselves. You get your hopes up for a part that you really want, and then you don't get it, and then you kind of feel defeated. So, I mean, I'd like to do a little bit more acting, especially in films. Not really TV ads so much, but I enjoy working on films and acting in films and exploring different parts of my personality. I've now played a bad guy twice in 2 short films. Luckily, the last one that I featured in not too long ago, that was shot right here in at what's the Zico Flay, and what's the other Flay? No, I think there's a along the M5 along Prince George Drive. There's a Princess Flay. Okay, so we shot on location there. Another short film, very small part. I'm literally in there for like 2 minutes, and Keenan Harrison is in that. Danny Ross is in that as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that's. So things like that. I enjoy doing stuff like that. Television. The only thing that I would do, I don't know if you watch a lot of game shows.
Okay.
So there's one game show in particular I put it out into the universe. If they ever bring that game show to South Africa, I want to host that. I don't know if you heard of a game show called Tipping Point.
No.
You know those machines at like Wonderland and
yes, where you drop the coins in.
You drop the coins in and then it pushes the coins forward. So it's a similar concept where you have these 4 contestants that answer general knowledge questions, and then they drop a coin or a marker into this thing, and then you have to get back as many pointers as possible or markers as possible. So my wife and I really enjoy Tipping Point. So if that ever comes to South Africa, I'm just putting it out there. Whoever is going to produce that, you got your host, right? I know the show inside it. You don't even have to audition or teach anyone. Your man is right here. But yeah, that's in terms of film and television, that is that. But more than that, outside of radio, the music thing for me is I still have a dream, man. I'm 40 years old, but there's one thing that on my bucket list that I still haven't gotten. And that is, I've put out original music already, but I'm still hoping for that one song that I put out that'll become like a smash and everyone knows it. And when I perform it live, one of the best feelings you can have, the crowd singing your song back to you. You don't even have to like sing off the song. It was like, Chris Brown, Usher, Justin Timberlake, whoever it is, The Weeknd, they singing a song and then like they point the mic at the crowd, and the whole crowd is singing your song back to you word for word, even with all the akkeltjies, the ad-libs that you do in the song. That's still on the bucket list for me.
I believe it would happen for you in terms of look at the KFM was also on the bucket list.
It was. I didn't think it would happen. KFM was always. I thought Good Hope was going to be the radio station that I started at and where I would retire. Because growing up, that was the station that I listened to, and KFM was always like unattainable. Like I can't get there. I mean, you have freaking Ryan O'Connor, and it's Darren Simpson, and you know it's Tracy Lang and Carl Wasty who were on these meteoric rises in their radio career, and you get me. You know, like I don't think I can get up there. And then and my wife was like, why do you doubt yourself like that? Why do you talk such negativity into your life? You know, like own that space. You do have the natural talent. You do have the talent to do this kind of thing. Own it. So I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to become arrogant. I don't want to have a chip on my shoulder, which I did have at one point when I was working at Good Hope. And she's like, but knowing that you have that, and Tracy said the same thing, knowing that you know that, knowing that you don't want to be that, will keep your feet on the ground. So, I mean, if KFM happened, hopefully that smash hit will also happen.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. As we leave now, what is your message to the world? But also, can you include for me with your motto, the timing is everything? Where does that come in?
My wife. all my great ideas.
Ghostwriter.
She's the ghostwriter. For real. Like my wife can't drive the point home enough. Every time we go through something in life, in our professional careers, ups and downs, she always says like, it's all about timing. Timing is everything. If it's not happening right now, it's not meant to happen right now. And when it does happen, then it happens. And then sometimes it happens all at once. You know, I don't know if I can reveal this, but at the same time that KFM came calling, Good Hope also called me to come back. And we sat down in Mug and Bean one morning or one afternoon, and that's when I bumped into Vernon from Art, and he was also like, we should talk sometime. So it could have happened all at once, and then I chose KFM at the time. They chose me, I chose them right back. So timing definitely is everything, but you need a reminder. Whenever it's at your low point when you need to remind yourself like that timing is everything. And you need to remind yourself, whatever you're going through now, this low point, that is temporary. There's always going to be, you need to just get over this hill. In running as well, it's just one more K. There's just so many more Ks, just one more step. You can do it. 5 more minutes of running to push yourself further. So, and we always tell each other, like, we don't want to give up and then the change was going to come around the corner. And now you gave up before the time. So just stick it out. There are times when you need to say no to things. There are times when you need to call quits on certain things. And you'll know when the timing is right. But there are certain things where you just need to, like, you know what? I'm going through this thing right now. So let me just persevere. Let me just remember why I'm here. The time will come. And when my time comes, no one, absolutely no one, is going to stop it. I mean, there's a saying, in Islam where they say what is, I always get this wrong, like, what is not meant for you will never reach you. And what is meant for you will never miss you. So that has to be the reminder every single day. When I feel like I'm not where I want to be, it's all about time. Time isn't right yet. It's not meant for me just yet. But when it is meant for me, no one's going to stop it. Then it's going to come. Doesn't matter who is saying what, then it's going to come. So, yeah.
Before you say goodbye, I feel a bit guilty that he mentioned on the radio they do community stuff. We haven't done one in a while, so I just want to mention this. So this young lady wants to go to Blackpool, UK. The UK is
the dancer, yeah.
It's a dance competition, and she wants to enter that. And she's got a backup buddy. Her parents opened it up, Chantal and Brandon, school friend of mine, Chantal. So I'm just doing this favor.
Oh yeah, but are they having an event or is it just the?
This is just the backup buddy.
Okay.
So I'm gonna leave the link in the
link
into the podcast itself.
Okay, so they have some donations already. So yeah, but this you see things like this. Okay, I don't do the whole backer buddy thing. On my show, it's more like of events where people can attend to fundraise. But something like this is something that's very important also to highlight. Maybe on my socials, if you send me the info, then I can share on my socials.
That would be awesome,
if I'm not mistaken, I think Chantal, she messaged us on WhatsApp.
Sy is baie besig.
I think she messaged us on WhatsApp, and but it's Black Friday week, man. So we're doing a lot of competition. So it probably got lost in all the entries that come in for the different competitions. But I would actually urge her to rather email me the information, and then I can share it that way.
Okay, cool. Okay, we can sort it out.
Sorry, but I'm just thinking now at the same time, every time with these types of events, there's a lot happening. And we kids need to get overseas and all of us, and there's never ever funding that comes from the government directly for these types of things. It's constantly where the parents need to do whatever and fundraisers. But that's a whole other show. Yes. Thank you so much for coming out, for making the time. I wish you all the best for your future and for your bucket list as well.
Thank you very much. No, it was an absolute honor. And whenever you want me to come back, I'll definitely come back. And
you are most welcome to come back if you bring your wife also.
No, she's going next time she's going to be on air with me, so people can see who's the mastermind here. Like everyone who knows me knows that she's the brains of the operation. Yeah. And I'm the looks. So. Jokes.
Thank you so much, guys. Tune in next week again. Thank you.